George W. Bush released a statement and, a little video here about the COVID-19 pandemic, and it went viral. You had millions and millions of people view this, and that got people talking about George W. Bush and his legacy. So let's take a look.
This is a challenging and solemn time in the life of our nation and world. A remorseless, invisible enemy threatens the elderly and vulnerable among us, a disease that can quickly take breath and life. Medical professionals are risking their own health for the health of others, and we're deeply grateful. Officials at every level are setting out the requirements of public health that protect us all, and we all need to do our part. The disease also threatens broader damage, harm to our sense of safety, security, and community. The larger challenge we share is to confront an outbreak of fear and loneliness, and it is frustrating that many of the normal tools of compassion, a hug, a touch, can bring the opposite of the good we intend. In this case, we serve our neighbor by separating from them. We cannot allow physical separation to become emotional isolation. This requires us to be not only compassionate, but creative in our outreach. And people across the nation are using the tools of technology in the cause of solidarity. In this time of testing, we need to remember a few things. First, let us remember we have faced times of testing before. Following 9/11, I saw a great nation rise as one to honor the brave, to grieve with the grieving, and to embrace unavoidable new duties. And I have no doubt, none at all, that this spirit of service and sacrifice is alive and well in America. Second, let us remember that empathy and simple kindness are essential, powerful tools of national recovery. Even at an appropriate social distance, we can find ways to be present in the lives of others, to ease their anxiety and share their burdens. Third, let's remember that the suffering we experience as a nation does not fall evenly. In the days to come, it will be especially important to care in practical ways for the elderly, the ill, and the unemployed. Finally, let us remember how small our differences are in the face of this shared threat. In the final analysis, we are not partisan combatants. We are human beings, equally vulnerable and equally wonderful in the sight of God. We rise or fall together, and we are determined to rise. God bless you all.
So, Twitter melted down, and everybody was slobbing on George Bush's knob and talking about a real president. Yeah, we have a fake president now. This is a real president, yeah. And it was hard to watch. It was tough that every single, liberal personality on Twitter, the ones that blew up big recently, like Deborah Messing, she called him, this is a real president. This is what a real president looks like. You had people, even some people who, you could argue were on the left. Mehdi Hassan, however you say it. He was giving George Bush credit for this. I saw David Pakman do it. I don't know what it is, man. I mean, I guess one of the things is absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think that's a phrase, that's a saying for a reason. I think it's generally true that the longer somebody is out of the public eye, the more people, it's almost like their minds gravitate towards nostalgia for the time, even disregarding all the negative things that were happening. You just have nostalgia for the time frame, and then you kind of like put onto Bush positive characteristics that he didn't have. And, you know the reason why they were slobbing on his knob. Because, they think he's so polite and he has decorum and he can speak well. A leader. Like, this is what people, I think, genuinely believe. I know I'm putting like the mocking voice on it, but yeah, there's an element of, oh, he's polite and he has decorum and he acts like a civilized person in his speech here, so therefore, give him credit where it's due. But here's why I don't. Because unlike many people, I don't value politeness and decorum. I really don't. That's not something I value even a little bit. In fact, to me, I value something that I think is largely competing with the whole politeness and decorum stuff, which is truth-telling. I think that most of the people in Washington, D.C. who would hit you with politeness and decorum, I think that's covering up the dirty reality of who and what they are. And so it's a mask. It's a facade. It's a charade. It's not real. It's kabuki theater. If I sit here with the right posture and I point at you in a very politician-y way, and if I put my smug face on, maybe it'll mask the fact that I'm a loathsome piece of trash. Like, I think that really is what happens. So a lot of people, like liberals and Democrats today, look at Trump and they see somebody who's unhinged, who has no filter, who shoots from the hip, who's not at all polite, shows no decorum whatsoever, doesn't care about, the rules of polite society. And that is Trump's biggest sin to them. So in other words, Trump's biggest sin is not increasing drone strikes 432%. Trump's biggest sin is not continuing our 7 or 8 wars that we're currently doing right now. It's not the 2017 tax cut law where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. It's not destroying the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's not taking away your internet privacy rights. And I can go on and on. They don't look at that stuff, and they actually honestly probably don't know about that stuff. They don't know the details of the stuff Trump has done. So what they do to hate him is just go, look at how he acts. Look at how he acts. He doesn't care about politeness. He doesn't care about decorum. He doesn't care about civility. He's got no filter. He's a ruffian. And that's what they don't like about him. Whereas with me, I actually like the no filter angle of him. I just think he's an idiot and he's wrong about everything when it comes to policy, or almost everything when it comes to policy. 90% plus of stuff that he does, I disagree with. But I could focus on the policy. But I'm not bothered at all by the non-politeness stuff. In fact, I wish more people in Washington, D.C. were real and they dropped the charade, they dropped the game, and they told you what they really think, and they had no filter. So for people who are saying, like, oh my God, isn't this so presidential? That's one of the words that's always just so presidential of George W. Bush to say stuff with nice music in the background. I don't know if they know it consciously, but I think a lot of why they say it is because they value the politeness. They value the decorum. They value the civility. And I know because people in my own family, like, there's a certain kind of person who does value, the show, the fake professionalism of it all. Whereas me, I look at that and I think that's the game. That's the political diversion tactics. That's not that's not what's really happening. What's really happening, and why George Bush should not be praised because he's polite and he sounds like a leader, he sounds presidential. That's not praiseworthy, especially because he did the Iraq War, he did the Afghanistan War. These are illegal offensive wars against countries that didn't attack us. He killed minimum 200,000 Iraqi civilians, and that's a low-ball number. Minimum. Never mind the worldwide torture regime that he set up. Never mind the NSA spying and the Patriot Act, which took away your rights, your protection from unreasonable search and seizure. Never mind the deregulatory policies and the tax policies, which led to the economic crash. So, for me, when I look at George W. Bush, that's what I see. I see a war criminal. I see a torturer. I see somebody who should be in The Hague. I see somebody who shredded the Constitution and took away your rights. That's what I see. And you have these people who, because George Bush can sound polite, because he can have decorum and civility, and because he could sound presidential, they value that. They value the game. They value the show more than they care about the policies. Because if you were giving him credit, you obviously were overlooking all the things I just named, the substantive harms that he caused, And, that's why I think it's an important point, and I don't think it's a point many people make, but I don't value the politeness or decorum at all. I don't care about that. That's the show. I'd rather have a truth teller. Now, again, Trump is not a truth teller. Don't get it twisted. He has no filter, but he happens to also be wrong about the overwhelming majority of stuff. But I like the no filter-ism. Give me the no filter. Give me the unvarnished truth. Speak your mind. Don't BS me. Don't give me flowery music in the background. Don't give me platitudes and cliches. But there's a healthy chunk of people in this country, some on the Republican side, some on the Democratic side, who genuinely value like the politeness and decorum and the he looks presidential stuff. They really like that. And that's why they were giving George W. Bush credit, is because that's something that they value, and that's something that they miss, because obviously Trump has none of the presidential quality, the civility, the decorum, the politeness, and all that stuff. So, he can't even fake it. He can't even give you the platitudes or the cliches if he wanted to. And so people look at Bush and they see, oh, isn't that so much nicer to have a calm, polite leadership voice in a time of crisis? That's what people are saying when they compliment him on that front. But honestly, I just think it's sad, and it shows. It's just such a dull, unintelligent, low-grade political analysis, isn't it? Like that's how it strikes me. It's like, oh wow, congrats. You like the fact that somebody can pretend to be polite and civil. Wow. It's like, really? That's all it takes to divert your attention? That's all it takes to make you an apologist, is that? Because listen, I'll give credit where credit is due, don't get me wrong, but I literally just don't value the politeness thing at all. Like, not even a little bit. If you want me to give Bush credit for anything, there's one thing I think he did that was good. He expanded community health centers as president. There you go. I gave credit where it's due. It's not like I'm not trying to make an argument here that you have to be black and white in your thinking and no nuance is allowed. Quite the opposite. I'm very pro nuance. I just don't value politeness or decorum stuff at all. Like, it does, not even a little bit. So when people praise him for that, it's like, wow, that's silly. So anyway, that's where I am on this. I think it's sad that a lot of people, even many on the left, were saying positive things. He really is a war criminal. He really is a torturer. He really should be in prison, along with Dick Cheney. And I'm not just saying that, I mean it. Because there's this thing that happens, and this will be the final point. There's this thing that happens where people in the U.S. are willing to grant our war criminals, murderers, evil people, we're willing to grant them nuance. We're willing to say, like, well, you could look at just the positive aspects of them, right? But this level of nuance is never applied to monsters anywhere else. So, if you came out and said something like, Mussolini really gave an amazing speech regardless of what you think about him, people will be like, what? What are you saying? He gave an amazing speech? Yeah, and he was also really good to his kids and his wife. I mean, he had some leadership qualities. Like, it's true. People would look at you like you're crazy if you say that. But what we do is we allow the nuance and the deep, multi-layered character analysis of our criminals because they're our guys. And so we assume good intent. So George W. Bush, it's not that he's a war criminal who has got the blood of hundreds of thousands of innocents on his hands. No, it's that he's a guy who meant well, but it was a mistake. The Iraq War was a mistake. So you see how it works? There's more leeway and leniency granted to our monsters versus anybody else's monsters. The other monsters, you have license to call them monsters. Our monsters, no. We got to do a deeper analysis of it. We got to go layers deep. We got to look for the positive stuff on purpose and then highlight that more so than we would even highlight the negative stuff, and let that almost drown out the negative stuff. Sorry, he made some mistakes, but he's polite and civil. Look at his speech. It's the fact that we don't have that objective standard, which is also depressing. Because people on the left who should know better, who should know about that objective standard, it's out the window. It's out the window. They're falling into that same trap that any conservative would, the trap of our guys deserve the nuance, the monsters elsewhere don't. However you decide to talk about these people, with a lot of nuance or with no nuance, you should apply that across the board to all the world leaders. We're not special because we're us. And unfortunately, many people think we are special because we're us.